welcome to another episode of the Tilehurst End podcast. Episode 388 sees us smack bang in the middle of the very first international break of the season. Possibly came at the wrong time. Either way, we have to get on with it. We're one of those lucky teams, I guess, those big-time teams that are allowed to postpone matches because we've got so many players jetting off around the world and, of course, around the UK island itself. We are fresh off a pod with Ruben Sellers. I didn't think I was going to mention it straight away, but I will because it's a great piece of work, isn't it, Ross? Great piece of work. Yeah, it was
fun. No, it's a great piece of work. Thanks to a great man. He really was very friendly from the off listeners. He started going on about other things as soon as we got on, and we did have to say, all right, Ruben, let's record because the listeners all like this. So just a thoroughly lovely man. Really good time last week. And yeah, if you haven't listened to it, it's on YouTube. It's on all the usual pod networks. Check it out.
Yeah, well worth a listen, and not for us. We're not blowing our own trumpets here. But Ruben was he was just excellent. He was excellent. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the pod in a second. Ross, before we continue and kind of get on with our agenda, if you like, slightly shorter pod this week, but we've still got a few meaty morsels or tofu morsels if you're that way inclined to get into. I have to ask you. Who is your Barclays man, and what song would it be?
I'm gonna go with Chem Campbell, the Bolton Puyol. I guess he played more, sort of defensive midfield rather than centre back most of the time, but just a fantastic head of hair. Really hit the ball with swaz. And I think I would use "Living for the Weekend" by Hard-Fi. I think that song really sums up that era.
There are so many that I mean, I really like this trend. I know you said earlier in the chat that you were a little bit sick of it now, but
no, I like it a lot too. I'm just like, I know that once my brain decides it doesn't like it anymore, it's going to find it very annoying immediately.
Yeah, it's one of those where you kind of constantly think about it, you can't get sleep.
Right?
Kind of your brain wants to switch off, but you're thinking about players from past generations. And I had a little think about it, and
who's yours?
It has to be the late great Gary Speed. If you're looking at players, there's loads you could pick, but for me, he was one of my footballing heroes, and I think that the longevity that he had in the game was second to none really. In terms of, I think he's still sort of pretty close to the top of the Premier League appearances. I haven't checked recently, but I think he'll be up there. And song, I mean, I found the song even more difficult than the player in some respects, but I'm going to have to go "Move to New York" by the Wombats. I just think that's just
a great
bang,
track. There's a lot of Wombat songs that you could use, by the way. There's quite a few Wombat songs on our soccer playlist over here for games. So, yeah, good choice.
Yeah, well, talking of good choices, ZCZ Films, our sponsors, once again sponsoring the pod. So we thank them. Gave them a shout out last week on our biggest, I was going to say biggest selling pod. No one's paid us any money for
our biggest selling pod ever.
Yeah, that's great. That's why you're here. That's exactly what we need. But yeah, they were on, and I think they were delighted that they were mentioned. But they would be. There's no way that we would do something like that without mentioning them. So yeah, big thanks to them as always. We are going to get into, it's not really a recap. We've just got, Ross has given me bullet points he wants to go through, so we're going to talk about those. Little kind of snippets over the last month really since the season started. Kind of off the pitch stuff, on the pitch stuff, and we'll go from there. So very short break, and we will be back in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail.
Keep up to date with all things Reading FC. Follow the Tilehurst End on Facebook and Twitter.
This podcast is proudly sponsored by ZCZ Films. Remember, if you want to get involved in sponsoring the show, drop us an email to thetilehurstend@gmail.com.
Right, welcome back to the Tilehurst End podcast, episode 388. We're ploughing through these numbers almost at a weekly rate. Who would think that we'd still be here a year later? But we are. We're still going. I think we're 10 years old now, actually.
We're pushing for a 400th episode. That's what we're
after.
It's
going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah,
just like the takeover. But we'll come back to that.
We'll
come back to that. We signed a player. I can't believe that anyone listening to this wouldn't have known that we we hadn't signed a player, but he kind of came. Well, I say late in the window. we were going to expect that no one was going to come through the door. Chem Campbell, who was paraded on the pitch against Charlton at halftime like a prized crocodile.
Right,
Just,
like a prize Conor Gallagher in Madrid.
Exactly. He didn't do any keepy uppies, but there was a lot of photographs and there was a lot of repeats of kind of social media content with photos in the week, after that. So, Ross, Chem Campbell, what can you tell us about him? How is he going to fit into our side? Is he ultimately a good signing on paper at this stage?
I have to get used to players playing for Reading now who are born after 2000 and just be fine with it. Chem was born in December 2002, which is what, like, I think even Campo, who I just mentioned, started playing for
I mean,
Bolton a year later.
I do it in World Cups, and that's South Korea, Japan.
Yeah, there you go.
And
Exactly. This man
fun
was
fact,
not alive. Yeah, go ahead.
a fact without the fun. That's the only World Cup I've watched every single game of ever.
Okay. Very nice.
I was doing my A levels. I was on study leave, and they were all in the morning, and I was watching it.
Oh yeah,
So,
that is a good
anyway,
one. Well,
I digress. Carry on.
Born after that World Cup. That's the first thing I can tell you about Chem Campbell. So Chem Campbell was not alive when David Seaman was chipped, but that's half our team. So, what can you do? Well, look, we spoke about him a little bit with Ruben last week. But yeah, it's good to bring in a player who has some League One experience. Last year, he played over 2,000 minutes in the league with Charlton and Wickham. And the most notable thing he did really was earn a penalty against us in the last 5 minutes against Clinton Mola there. So which I think gave Wickham the win that day. As well. So, Reading fans will remember him maybe not so fondly at the Medeski until now, but he's back and he's ready for business.
It was quite funny against Charlton because my dad before the game was asking me about this player, Chem Campbell, and I was like, I think he's going to be another one, by the way, that we say the whole name of.
Yeah,
it's not going to be
Campbell.
It's going to be Chem Campbell, but anyway. And he was like, "Oh, he's Welsh." I was like, "Is he?" And he's like, yeah, he's definitely Welsh. So I had a look, and he is actually he's qualified to play for Wales. So that was the first thing. And the second thing was at half time, my dad's went, "Oh yeah, he played for Charlton," and I was like, "Did he?" He's like, "Yeah." And I looked, and the reception was literally, I mean, it was worse than booing. It was just lukewarm from the Charlton fans. So I don't know if that means that they just don't care, or I don't know. Indifference is always worse, I think, than anger or love.
I think it's hard for a lone player. Like, I mean, I'm sure, like people can pull out lone players who are loved. Like I'll pull out, I don't know, Matt Miazga. Like, there are there are lone players that, like have good memories, but I think it's hard for them to really form a really tight attachment with the fans. But one thing that is kind of hopeful for me, in that he was a lone player last year, is that he still started more than 50% of his games last year but he did come on sometimes as a sub, don't get me wrong, but he was starting more than half of the time, and that kind of suggests that the managers thought there was something about him. Now he can play really anywhere across the front. He can play, sort of in that reserved striking role that Sam Smith has been occupying. But I think more likely we're going to see him on the right side. He can play on the left as well. We saw that last season, but with Kelvin playing there, and the bigger issue being, trying to find a replacement for Femi on the right, I think it's most likely that Chem is going to be playing, over there. It'll be interesting to see how he adapts to Ruben's style. But if he does do that, then I think there's some decent hope that he could score some goals, pick up some assists, and be dangerous in the box. That particular penalty that he earned against Mola comes as the result of a very nice turn. By the way, and gets himself dragged down, or kind of gets his legs caught by him there. But I think that there's still a lot of development for Chem Campbell. We weren't going to pick up a fully complete player, but he's certainly got more League One experience than any of the other options we've been trying at right wing so far this season. So yeah, if he can continue to progress from where he was last year, I think it's a good pickup for Reading, and I expect him to come right into the lineup against Leyton Orient this weekend.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, we've got until what, January? So,
Not long, yeah,
all being well, that would be exciting. I mean, very few loans these days stop when they're supposed to, unless something drastic, has gone on. Look, to be blunt, he's an extra body through the door, and everyone listening to this is fully aware of the situation that we're in terms of numbers, and it's only going to take another 2 injuries for it to look really, really threadbare. What's worse than threadbare?
Bare. Just bare.
Bare, yeah, bare, just
Straight
bare,
bare.
just naked,
Bare with
completely
a
naked.
bear there. Like there's nothing there, but there is a bear. That's bad.
Yeah, that's pretty
So
bad. It could just be naked, couldn't it? The squad could just be naked.
okay. I was talking
Along
about the
those lines.
furry animal.
Well,
Anyway.
yeah, okay, yeah, fine. All right, we'll stick on animals rather than whatever I was said. But the point is that we needed stuff in, and I think when the statement came out prior to Chem Campbell signing, there was I was kind of optimistic that we were going to get the kind of the rumored 2 or 3 players that are, in inverted commas, lined up ready to go. So he was obviously one of them. Club have made that really clear. Ruben Sellers made that really clear that they were after him for a long time in terms of the summer window. But without being greedy, we need another 3 or 4 players through the door. I think just to pad it out. I mean, we've submitted the EFL squad, and it's probably the the smallest squad we've ever got. I think we've filled 13 of 25 senior
Something like
spaces
that,
or whatever,
yeah.
which is just bonkers. But
Yeah.
we keep going. I think the fact that anyone, even on loan or on a free signing or whatever, is wanting to come to this club currently, that's testament to what's been going on the pitch, and
Yeah.
the way that the club or the team have been supported by the fans and all that sort of stuff. So, I said this last year. Anyone who's coming into the squad is instantly getting a pat on the back from me, because it's chaos. Certainly
Well,
off the pitch is chaos.
yeah, no, definitely. We appreciate anyone coming in. Last thing I'll say on Chem. So obviously Aziz is the player that we really needed to replace, and I don't know if Chem's still got something to prove if he's going to be able to replace the production of Aziz in terms of generating threat and goals and all of that kind of good stuff. But having a look at the stats from last year, Aziz sat about 26th in the league for progressive runs, so pretty good. Aziz was good at progressing the ball down the field with his legs, my favorite expression this year. But Chem Campbell was in 29th place, and he was so Femi Aziz 2.6 progressive runs per 90, Chem Campbell 2.55, so neck and neck really, and so that does effectively help us replace one of the things that Aziz was providing to the team, and it'll just be about whether that production can come as well as to whether it'll be a successful loan, I think.
Yeah, well, we're hopeful that he will be around in the squad. There's no hint of any sort of injury at the moment, or not being match fit. So, you would expect him to definitely be in the squad. Potentially, as you said, Ross, even start, come in for a can day potentially. We'll see what happens there. We'll go from there. Talking of players in general and current players, Lewis Wing, he's had a kind of an interesting start to the season. Not particularly negative, just different. And you certainly, Ross, have noticed that he's been a lot deeper than what we probably would have expected him to have done last season. Certainly in terms of goal involvement, assists and actual physical goals. Don't know how else to say it, really. I was going to say naked goals, but that doesn't work.
Physical goal, bare goals.
Bare goals, exactly. Just talk to us a little bit about where Lewis Wing is physically at on the pitch at the moment, and the possible reasons for why that might be the case, and kind of how it's helping us, really.
Yeah, the answer to that really, like where is Lewis Wing on the pitch? The answer to that really is everywhere. I had a look at his heat map again especially in the first half against Charlton from last week, and the man is just everywhere. He's got ball retrievals in his box, in the opposition's third, around the halfway line, a little more on the right side, but really, he is getting up and down the field and is all about. And I had perceived, like we talked about, now I think we're sick of saying almost that he is playing a bit deeper this year. But I thought it was really interesting when Ruben kind of mentioned when we were speaking with him that yeah, he is playing a bit deeper right now, but I think there is still desire to get him further up the field and allow him to shoot in the way that he could last year, because I'm not really sure Wings had that many chances to shoot yet this season when there haven't been 2 or 3 bodies in front of him. Frankly, now Savage being in the team has made that less of an issue because Savage also has that in his locker. And it means that we have a player who can sit on the outside of the box and take shots or finish off chances with late arrivals and things like that. But again, Ruben was kind of still of the opinion that he wants to get Wings shooting there, and I'd say why not? He scored the most out of the box goals in England last season, so it would be silly to not be trying to get that working. So there's going to be a video on Wing coming a little bit later this week. This is mostly a plug section, listeners. Sorry.
I was going to
But
say you
we're
bow
going
to pressure from that one
yeah.
person who desperately needs to watch it.
Yeah, well, there you go. There you go. But I just wanted to kind of talk about, like why it is that he's not quite so far forward, why he's not taking shots, and how they might adjust that to make him to get him into positions where he can shoot a little more often. So I really like him in the sort of like 2-3 build up that Reading use currently, where they split Bindon and Mbenge, and then they kind of have Craig, Dorset, and Wing in the middle of all of that, kind of creating a bunch of triangles and making it just really hard for opposition attackers to mark them. It worked really well against Charlton. I was watching that back. The plan was for Charlton's wingbacks to try and pin our fullbacks in the press. Problem was Michael Craig wasn't where they wanted him to be half the time, so he just kept drifting inside, and he's doing that to create that, or to get more out of his connection with Wing on the field on that sort of like right space during build up. So yeah, really interesting kind of what's going on with Wing. Looking forward to getting some more information out there in the world about it this week. And yeah, I guess he's a bit more all over the field than I had thought that he maybe had been just from the eye test. But it'll be interesting to see how Reading develop to try and get him shooting outside of the box again.
Well, I mean, talking of shooting and being back in the thick of it, Sam Smith is your man. We said before the Charlton game that he desperately needed a goal to get going. Very, very good against Wigan. The previous home game just kind of had a lot of opportunities that he effectively spanned. And I think you said, Ross, he's not going to get better opportunities than those and not score. He did score really, really well taken goal against Charlton to seal the deal. Fantastic time to score a goal. We were a little bit under the cosh at that point, and just turning it back on them to get the 3 points. Lovely ball in, but as I've said time and again with strikers, you have to be in those positions to be able to finish it. It sounds cliche, it's not.
No, it's half the battle.
There is a lot of danger of strikers drifting out, particularly when they're not seeing much of the ball, trying to get involved in the play. But his positioning was great. Lost his defenders and netted with aplomb, shall we say. He made some interesting comments to a radio station, and we'll leave it there after the game. That was widely reported in local media as well, printed media and online. I'll quote this from Wokingham today after the game. Smith then opened up about the difficulties that the club continues to face while the takeover saga is still not resolved, and admitted that it has personally affected him. He continued, credit to everyone, especially after the chaos that's been going on behind the scenes. There's not much I can really say on the situation, but I hold my hands up. Me personally, it's affected me over the transfer window. I mean, only he knows, and probably a select few behind the scenes know what he actually means by that. What was your take on his comments after a really positive outing against Charlton, who were undefeated and hadn't conceded a goal up until they came to the Fortress SCL.
Yeah.
What did you make of Smith's comments after the game, Ross?
I thought that the comments helped make the first month of Smith's season make a bit more sense, because I think that Smith, he really improved. I mean, he was good from the get-go, but he really improved even more as the season went on, and he was better and better and more important to how Reading were playing. So to see him come out this season, and like not every player can start super fast, can come out the race course blocks. I don't know what we were talking about. You know what I mean? To come out firing or whatever. It can't happen for everyone, but I did think that, especially against Wrexham, Smith was having a little bit of a tough time, more so than usual. So it was really, really good to see him get the goal against Charlton, and hopefully, before that game, he was able to, I don't know, hopefully he's feeling maybe a little better about the situation, but who knows? And I kind of wanted to talk about it just to kind of highlight that until we get this thing finally done, this is a danger that, some of our better players are unsettled. Now the flip side to that is, I think we've had in recent weeks, it seems that the Wing family are very happy in Reading. And I think Wing was suggesting that he'd like to stick around for, a long time, basically, which is great. It's great when your principal players want to do that. But I just kind of wanted to talk about it to sympathize with Smith a bit, because we've said on this podcast a lot of times we wouldn't begrudge anyone who wanted to leave the club at the moment just because of the situation. And, at the end of the day, it's your job. And if you have to risk your mental health to do your job, then it's tricky as a human. Not as a football player, as a human. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of bring it up and sort of, I guess, keep fingers crossed for the takeover being done soon, because while, it continues to drag on, it does affect our players, which, does, affect their performance on the pitch as well. So yeah, just wanted to, I guess, talk about it a little bit in case people hadn't seen it, and offer a little sympathy.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. You don't know what angle he's coming from, really, in terms of what that actually looks like. It could be that he was concerned or slightly worried about his own position in terms of, strikers being mentioned for us and him having extra competition there. It could be that there was, a possibility that other clubs were coming in. You don't know, really. Like, we can sit here and speculate until midnight. But, the point is, I think you're right, Ross. It's incredibly difficult to understand what it's been like for those players in that position, and particularly last season. And we've said this time and again, but any job you do, you want to get paid for it. And a lot of these players are young. A lot of these players have moved to the area, potentially bought a flat or a house or whatever. Still got to pay the mortgage, still got to do that. So the idea of not getting paid at the end of the month or having difficulties being paid by your employer is, must be incredibly stressful at any level, really. But he looked like a man that was I say calm. He didn't look like he was stressed before, but you could just tell there was something a bit different in his performance against Charlton. And I think in some respects, I think it's quite a good thing that he's come out and said that, because we're able to see an even more human side to the players, rather than just you go train, you play the games, you block everything out. And we know, as humans, that's not the case. But it's just nice to hear that on record at times. And I think, he doesn't need to elaborate any further than that. It's affected him. That's it. In some capacity, we'll move on. Hopefully he's had the support that he needs from the club and from his teammates and his family and friends, and we move on from there. And, I'm hoping, I'm sure you're hoping, Ross, and everyone listening to this, is that we're going to get a lot more goals out of Sam Smith this year, because he's pivotal to the way that our football team plays on the pitch, and, how we sort of challenge to get up the league, really. So, long may his goal scoring streak continue. Back in action this Saturday. It's come around really quick, but this Saturday against Leyton Orient, 3 p.m. kickoff. Tickets still available. I don't work for the ticket office, but there will be tickets available. We know that. So come on down if you're not doing anything. We're gonna do something slightly different. We're gonna move to the women. But that's not really what I mean. What I mean is we've got a guest to talk about the women in terms of their season.
You haven't got a guest. What are you talking about?
You've got a guest. You
didn't
spoke
even
to
show up, listeners. All right.
I know our very well respected Peter Matthews, who is going to be, realistically, he's going to be your only source for Reading FC women's commentary away from the club this season. There is a Reading FC women's kind of fan
Football in
group.
Berkshire might do
Football
it
in
too,
Berkshire,
right?
pretty good as well. But Peter Matthews is writing for us at the Tilehurst End. Very, very comprehensive match reports for every single Reading FC women's game. So if you haven't seen those already, they're on the website. They'll be on our X feeds as well, and they're there. And I'm sure he will put them out himself too. But he is here to talk to Ross about Pedro Bruno, brand new manager, and his new team on and off the pitch, competing at the 5th tier. Would you believe 5th tier of women's football?
And there are some crazy rules down there. So recommend
rules.
anyone hang on and listen, because it was a really interesting chat, guys. So yeah, thank you to Peter for coming on with us.
Yeah, so that's coming up after this short break.
Come rain or shine, it's time to relive the latest match action with the recap.
This podcast is sponsored by ZCZ Films, Reading's oldest ultras.
All right. Well, welcome to a very special segment on the Tilehurst End podcast. So this is going to be our September entry for the Reading women's team update. Now, if you're reading the Tilehurst End website, and if you're not, what are you doing? You absolutely should be. But you may know Peter Matthews, who writes the excellent post-game reports for us on the women's team. And so we thought we'd bring Peter along today and just get an update on the women. How are you doing, Peter?
Yeah, very good, thank you, and thank you for calling them excellent match reports. So that's very kind, too kind.
You do a better job of actually telling the listeners what happened during a game than we were doing for about half a year there. So they are excellent. Don't worry, Peter. So obviously it's been a big change over the summer for the Reading women. I think that we spoke about it with Abby back towards the end of July, start of August, but lots and lots of changes with the club's unfortunate demotion down to Tier 5 and the Southern Regional League. The club is now in the hands of the Community Trust, as I understand. But Peter, why don't you give us just a little summary of kind of what's happened for the women's team this summer and where we are?
Yeah. So after the devastating news for the relegation to Tier 5, we've ended up now with the club being financially separate, really. So the women's team are now financially separate to the football club. It's run by the Community Trust, as you say, and effectively all the staff, all the players made redundant and starting again, really. So you're going from what was a professional team 2 years ago to part-time to now pay to play. So, the Reading Community Trust have been fantastic. They've stepped in and they are paying the subscriptions for the girls and the women players this year. So, yeah, that's been brilliant. And then it's a rebuilding exercise with the advert, really, an open application for trials starting from mid-July. I think the closing date was 31st of July, but although it's a closing date, I think that's the initial bit, because they'll still need more players now, really. So they've looking on the FA site today, there looks to be 16 players that are now registered. So there would have been
more than I knew about. I had seen 14 at the last time, so that's good that they're still continuing to. We're up to the heights of 16th.
We are, and I think it's still. I mean, you can't underestimate the rebuilding of what is effectively a new football club. So, and it is perhaps 2 steps forward on 1 step back at a time, because it should have been 18 registered players, but before Sunday's games, we've lost 2 more players. So there was a tweet and an update from the football club to introduce, I think it was 6 players last week. That it looks like that website has now been taken down because 2 of them have already left. So it's tough.
It is manic. Yeah. So you're saying the club have brought in players, but they have already some of them have already headed out the door as well. Is that down to injury or better opportunities?
Yeah, but just different opportunities, I think, I guess, or better opportunities. So, and it's it's not like the Championship and the WSL, so players can come and go all season. So we're up to 16. There's no transfer window that's suddenly finished.
Right.
The women's team can continue to bring in players. Equally, they can continue to leave, and I think if you've been on the substitutes bench and not played, you're kind of free to join another club. If you have played, there's a transfer fee, which I think is, or an administration fee, not really a transfer fee of, £100. I think it is to change clubs. So it's a whole new, it's a whole new league.
Ball game.
Yeah.
I'm impressed that you've managed to learn these rules.
There's even the rules have changed. So there are 11 players on the pitch. Obviously, there are 5 substitutes, but again, different to tier 5 is that you can now have rolling substitutes.
Right.
So so the players can come off and come on several times. So assuming that we can get a team with 5 substitutes, it will be a different tactic for managers as well, I would imagine. So during a game, you could effectively bring defensive players on or attacking players on when you need to, and 10 minutes later change it again, really. So it's certainly different.
It's a whole other thing to think about. It's almost developmental in approach, and that's how it'll work in youth leagues a lot, and that players will be able to come in and out, until they get to that 90 minutes, 11 aside.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, lots and lots of signings, and some of them may not still be with the club, but I think we've signed at least 13, maybe more, since August 23rd. It's September 10th when we're recording this, listeners, so that has not been long, at all, less than 3 weeks. And if you've only been following the men's, when obviously we've only picked up Chem Campbell over the summer, it is a different world, isn't it, with all of those signings? Are there any that stand out to you, any that you saw maybe at Sholing or before that were interesting?
Yeah, no, there's some really good talent actually on the pitch. So I think a couple of the girls are from the under 21 academy team. So I think there's 7 players in total actually that have come through the academy or are making the step up from academy to women's football for the first time. So we've seen that in the men's game, how difficult that can be, and so it's again another big step up. There were some good players. I mean, the game itself was interesting, and the players are still obviously getting to know each other. So I would imagine there might even be a couple that don't even know the names. So as you can imagine, let alone know where you're going to be on the pitch and who you're going to pass to. But yeah, there's some real talent. There was one of the ladies, Santi. I think it's Santi Erna. Was playing, and she's I think she's come through the youth ranks of West Ham and Crystal Palace, and she looks certainly quite a talent. She's got a gift and an energy on the ball. The captain, Jourdain, I think it is, she likes to be called Jordan, I think. Hoseli Atkins, Jordan, she was the captain. She was a real leader. She was a real standout player, had a super game actually, really vocal, led the rest of the team, led by example. So
why don't we get onto that then, Peter, because of course you were at the game this weekend. The women did kick off in Sholing, so they played at times with 10 players, from what I understand, and I believe they only had 12 players active at the actual game. They did go down 3-0 to 3 first half goals, but I think reading your report, which again, listeners, you can find on the website. You made it sound like there were some real bright sparks in there as well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the game and how it went down?
Yeah. So when it was played at an academy school. It was played on a 3G pitch or a 4G pitch. I'm not sure what they are nowadays. Full of the black rubber. So
Yep. It was always AstroTurf when I was young.
AstroTurf, that's what we should call it, really. So you're quite right. Yeah, and when we started the game, or when they were warming up, ready to kick off, it was fairly evident that there were only 12 players available. So one substitute, and it was fairly clear as well from the team that we managed to find out that two players were missing from the squad, and two more players had disappeared as well. So the one player that was on the substitute bench was a lady called a young lady called Layla Ali, and she had only signed, I think, on the Friday. So
Wow.
it was a surprise. She didn't have a squad number, so she was
Okay.
wearing the number 9 shirt. She started on the bench, and in true Reading style, actually, at any level, we managed to get an injury within the first 6 minutes, and so. Laura had to go off. Laura Palfrey, I think, had to go off with a hamstring injury. So we were straight down to 11 players. Ali was brought onto the pitch, and away we went. And we were undone by two corners, really. One that went straight in, directly in, which is pretty good, actually, to be fair. And the other one where we failed to clear it, and it was tucked in and touched in from close range, really, and then a goal just before half time that made it 3-0 and really probably put the game beyond reach, really, with 11 players that have hardly played together, really. So there's been no pre-season friendly.
Right.
There's been no pre-season friendlies at all from that point of view. They're training at Slough, at Arbour Park, and they're meant to be doing a bit of fitness work. But I think, as we're going to discuss the manager later, but I think they've been using the pitch, the AstroTurf pitch over at the Dome as well, actually, just to try and get a bit of pitch time, really.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
but
It
in
is such a
between
different experience.
in between the three goals, as mad as it sounds, Sholing, I guess you don't need to, but they didn't do much else. Reading, played well, controlled the game for periods of time. We're looking to attack, but it did look like a team of players where the forward passes, the offensive passes were not quite there, because you probably wouldn't know where your colleagues were, if and your teammates are, if you haven't played together for any long period of time. So
yeah, definitely. Now, we've been talking about connections on the pitch on the men's side as well, and being able to play better with players that well, and if you don't know where, whether your winger prefers to run inside, outside, or whatever, it's difficult to know where to send that ball. I guess last thing I've got to ask about that game in Sholing, then, did you manage to stay relatively dry? I know it was absolutely tipping down.
Well, it went so rather well in typically British weather. It went from bright sunshine and thinking that you might need to put your suntan lotion on because it was extremely warm, to literally I think it was about 10 minutes to go for the match, where the heavens opened in a biblical storm type fashion, and it was some of the fans had umbrellas, like myself. But that it made writing any notes on a pad extremely difficult, because I was very old school.
No, I'm with you on that. Yeah, I've got lots of washed out pieces of coaching, paper and stuff from the years. So yeah, it's a tricky one. Well, hey, good for you for getting a good report off even after your notepad was rained on. Very, very good. So I guess then it's a difficult situation for any manager to manage. We spoke a lot about how Ruben's had a tough time on the men's side, but it doesn't sound like Pedro Bruno, who is the new women's manager, is going to have any easier of a time this year. Could you tell us a little bit about what you've been able to learn about him and some of the challenges he faces?
Yeah, I mean, he's he's known to the women's team as it because last season he was doing some performance analysis work for the team. So he's got some experience with the team. He's very eager. He's very keen. He's grasping this opportunity He comes from an analysis background, really. So
Yeah.
he comes from an analysis background. I think at Cambridge, actually. I think is where he started. He's done some work, with the women's team and the emerging talents team. So he's done a lot in this field. But this is the first step up into coaching.
Yeah.
So I would imagine, again, after a few games, the analytical work that he does will be of help and will be useful. So
Definitely.
particularly in a league where you're going to struggle to find information and against a lot of teams where they will also have new players. But he's really keen. He's a super bloke, and to show how much, again, all of the new coaching team have done. He had his interview on his honeymoon.
Oh, wow. Okay. So there is commitment there then, for sure. Definitely.
So they were away on honeymoon. So he's clearly got a very understanding wife as well. So who I got to meet actually on Sunday. So she's good. Lovely as well. But that's the length that that he's gone to already, really, from that point of view. So super bloke, looking to do all the right things. I've asked him about ideally how he would like to play football, and crikey, it's how you'd like to play football. He's got to have a team and a squad first of all,
right? Yeah,
but he is. It's keeping the ball, but with purpose. It's attacking. It's keeping it simple. He will allow the players to have all the creativity and freedom they want, because he feels that he can't tell them. It's up to them to make those decisions. So
definitely,
he's but crikey, step one is getting 11 to 16 players turning up,
getting the logistics done, and then we can think about tactics. Of course, and
at the moment the team again, it's alien for you can't compare this to WSL, you can't compare this to the Championship football. So at the moment, the team doesn't have a sponsor. I think Emma is working on looking for a sponsor. So there are no sponsors, on the shirt either. There's no team bus. There's no minibus. So it was an hour and a half to drive down to Eastleigh. I don't know where the players are coming from, but again, if their training are based over at Slough, they might be that direction. So for some of these players, they've probably taken 2 hours, to drive themselves to Eastleigh and get there. So it's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah. No, it does almost sound like I was saying, developmental in approach, which good for the pathway, but very different thing to learn for fans and players alike. It's funny, the more you're just thinking about what you're saying with Pedro and his obsession with football as well, the more footballers and people in football I speak to, I feel that talent or interest isn't the most important thing. It's a understanding and patient spouse to make sure that you can do all these things. So we kick off our home campaign in Slough this weekend, I believe, down at Arbour Park. So what can you tell us about the opposition or anything you're looking for, either with the team or with the stadium?
Yeah. So it's worth just talking about the league quickly as well. So even that's changed. So when Reading were relegated and found themselves in the Southern Region League of Tier 5, they were joining a league with 12 teams, so they'd have been the 12th team. With 2 weeks, 3 weeks before kickoff of the first game, then and we missed a week actually. The rest of the league kicked off on the 1st or the 1st of September, but there were 12 teams when we joined. We lost 2 teams just before kickoff. So Long Crendon were a team that were promoted, and Warminster, both deciding to pull out of the league because they didn't feel they could be competitive. So Long Crendon were a team that were promoted. They were reward for being promoted was going to Tier 5, but then they quickly decided that they just couldn't compete. They didn't have the resources, the facilities, the ground. So so Reading, albeit not ideal, that we don't really want to play away from the Select Car Leasing Stadium, and we don't want to be 30 miles down the road and 30 minutes down the road. But Arbor Park is, it looks a super venue. The facilities are very good. I know Emma and Pedro are very, it's superb. It's probably, it must be the best facilities a team, the best stadium and the best facilities in this league. So, it's a great base.
It
An
almost felt like
opportunity
a
for
step up from where they were in Aldershot last year. I know Aldershot's a proper ground and grass and all of that kind of stuff, but certainly in terms of, I don't know how it looked for the fan experience, it looks not a bad spot.
Yeah, it's no, it looks really good, and you're right. It's another AstroTurf. It holds 2,000 people. I think there's 500 seats. So the experience of any fans that can get there, should be good. So the first game is against Oxford City. So
oh, perfect. All right, got some Thames Valley rivalry right in there to get started.
Yeah, and just to up the ante as well, Oxford City normally play in blue and white hoops as well.
Oh my!
So
Oh gosh! All right.
so,
Well, maybe we'll have to do a fight for the hoops during this league. Whoever wins gets to keep them.
That's right. So so it'd be the Super Hoops against Oxford City.
Less super hoops.
Yeah, exactly, indeed.
There you go. Fantastic. All right. Well, Peter, anything else on the ladies before I let you go here? This has been great because I think we'll definitely get you on as well, further through the season to kind of give the listeners some more updates and things like that. But anything else for?
No, well, we've asked. No, I mean, keep an eye on the the women's the football club women's Twitter feed, and we're hoping that there will be more information that comes via that. The fixture list isn't even published really, so at this level they only publish the games for September. They've added another game for October, so they're being drip fed through as well. So it's to keep an eye on the updates. The Tilehurst End do they clearly do a good job in trying to promote the women's football alongside the more popular men's side of the game. And crikey, I'll try and do my bit. If there's anybody out there that wants to write and do a bit more for the women's game, then I'm sure Simeon and the team will be pleased to publish that as well. But otherwise, thanks for your time, and let's hope that the fairy tale story, the Phoenix from the Flames, can get going soon. Really, so we just need a few more players and a bit of time, really, to get going.
Definitely. Yeah, guys, make sure you're reading Peter's post-game reports on the Tilehurst End because they are great. Peter, I appreciate you mentioning that. If you're interested in writing about the women's team, Ben says it a lot, but we are trying to do more in that regard. We wanted to do more last year, but there was a couple things going on with the men's team that distracted us just a little bit. But we really do just a couple. Yeah. But like you said, Peter, this is the rebirth of the team and we want to be here to celebrate that. So yeah, thank you for all of your efforts as well.
Yeah. And anybody that can get along to Arbor Park on Sunday, 2:00 kickoff. Should be good. Back these girls. They're part of this new era that the comeback season as the club are trying to promote it.
Definitely. All right. Thank you so much, Peter.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Be loud and be proud and back the boys and make some noise. Come on, you Rs!
Shout out to this week's podcast sponsor, ZCZ Films, showing that age is no barrier to being a hula hoop.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Really good chat with Peter there about a little bit of everything, the stadium, the team, the manager, getting soaked in Sholing. Don't even know where that is. But I think near Eastleigh was what he was saying. So, but really great chat with Peter and do read those articles on the site because they are excellent. And like Ben says, honestly, one of the best ways to keep up with the the rehabilitation, the rebirth of the Reading women's team. That's it. Short one today.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing we haven't talked about, and we're still waiting, is a certain Mr. Rob Coick, who was papped all over the Purple Turtle last week.
He was perped.
He's perped. Yeah, nice. Perped is a good one. We're still waiting. We're obviously still waiting. We all know that, but it was a masterclass in PR, because there was all leading up to that week. There was a lot of rumbling. There was a lot of grumbling. There was a lot of negativity. There was a lot of this isn't going to happen, and then bam, out of the blue, picture of him walking into the Turtle with a Reading FC jacket on, and then sat down kind of at the bar area, really, or just table just off it, with his laptop with the jacket on, and other things going on. So listen, we all thought that we would be done and dusted by now. I can imagine that him and his team thought they would be done and dusted by now. The fact that there is little to no news means that it's probably still progressing, but it also means that kind of some of those leaks and those bits of information that we're getting out have probably closed rank a little bit. There's all sorts of stuff floating out there, and there has been over the last few weeks, but we're still here. We're still supporting this football club. The football club is still playing as well as they can. We've still got an absolutely incredible manager in charge, incredible fan base, players that are playing well below their level currently in terms of being higher up the football pyramid, and we're very, very lucky to have. And we keep going, as Ruben said, one day at a time. And that's definitely a kind of a motto that I've adopted since I spoke to Ruben last week. I'm sure you have as well, Ross, but it just brings it home, really. We're a very unique club at the moment, and
we are.
Long may that continue for all the positive reasons, but we're still selling out away games. We're still selling shirts. We're still going to games. We're still performing really, really well on the pitch. So, we'll see what happens this Saturday. Ross, have a really good rest of your week, sir.
Thank you very much. You as well. Oh, Hearts of Pine. I haven't mentioned them in a while. Portland Hearts of Pine. Play with your heart. Check them out. They are a new USL 1 team coming to Portland, Maine next year. And very amusingly, they start their season in March, and they cannot play a home game until May because it is way too cold in the state of Maine to play that time of year. So
what, they can't, it's that cold in March, is it still?
Yeah. So at that time, if you want to play outdoors football, you play in something called the Frostbite League, whereby gloves, hats, everything, all of that kind of stuff. I'm sure there are Scandinavian people that would laugh at us, but remember, a lot of these teams that will be coming up from Florida do not want to play in anything below,
how
5
degrees
Celsius
at that time of the year.
It'll be like -5, like you get to like 7:30 at night for games, and it'll be like -5 Celsius, probably between -5 and
-5 Celsius in March.
It's cold, yeah, it's very cold, and then when the wind's blowing off the snow, it's pretty cold. So,
God, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. That's what this is how we pay for the summer of 30-degree days that we get, is that we also get months and months of negative, basically. But hey, cannot complain. Lovely place to live. Portland Hearts of Pine. Check them out.
I mean, that is a cool t-shirt, and I'm sure they've got an X account, surely. So follow them on there.
You can check them out there. Yep.
They signed anyone? They got any good players?
No, they haven't signed anyone yet. They ain't got any players. They've got a director of football though. So that's. Nice. I was about to make some Mark Bowen jokes. I'm going to stay.
Do you know what I was thinking about?
Podcast.
We'll stop it there. Have a really good week, everybody. Thanks for listening. As I said, slightly different podcast this week, but international break. There wasn't much going on during the season off the pitch and stuff anyway. So you're used to these sort of rambling nonsense of...
Everyone's busy watching Morgengam's Pedersen on Twitter anyway. They're not listening to us.
Exactly. Yeah, and if you like our Barclaysmen and our songs, please let us know. Ideally via email. We love an email at the Tilehurst End. But if not, X is fine, or any comment you want to put. Thanks for listening. We will see you next Monday for a recap of the Leyton Orient game. Hopefully, we'll be talking about some positive news in the takeover, but who knows? Who knows? Given up trying to preempt it now. Take care, everybody. Love to the family, and come on, you Ars.